All right, so I just got back from seeing the Solo, a Star Wars film. I just wanted to share a couple of my thoughts about it. This is the second attempt that Disney's made to do a Star Wars film separate from the Skywalker saga. I think they call it anthology films. The first film was Rogue One, which was pretty good. We all know the highlight of that film, though, was probably Darth Vader and a couple of scenes that he was in when he was in the chamber, forgot what it's called, and then also when he was slicing and dicing right before the rebellion took off with the plans to the Death Star. So that first attempt was pretty decent. You know, it got a lot of flack at first, but I liked it. This Solo film is supposed to be about Han Solo and his start to becoming, a famous smuggler, famous rebellion soldier, just a legend throughout the galaxy. So, based upon the film's plot or whatever, he comes from nothing. He was just like a bum on his planet of Corellia. He had a girl out there that he cared about. He ended up getting out. The film went into him desperately searching to get out of his home planet. Therefore, he joined the Empire. A new arc, I guess, in this story. I had no knowledge that he ever worked for the Empire. They showed some scenes of him actually fighting some type of battle that the Empire was in, where they were taking over a planet, I guess, and it had like a World War II-esque type of feel. The scene did, at least, where they're in trenches and it's dark and they have on like army fatigue or whatever. So I feel like that part was a little weird, but they threw that in there. The fact that he, at some point, was a pilot for the Empire. He was too rebellious, so they moved him down to the army. And then there at that point is when he ran into Woody Harrelson's character. I forgot his name within the movie, but he was basically a smuggler as well, but also infiltrated the Empire and acted as if he was a captain just for some ploy to get whatever resource he was looking for to return to whatever gangster he was dealing with. So in that moment, Han was trying to escape from the Empire to go with Woody Harrelson's character just to go off and do random things throughout the galaxy, which I guess was his real dream anyway. They then turned their back on him, turned him into the Empire, and the Empire then made a decision they wanted to kill him humorously, so they fed him to the beast. Coincidentally, the beast ended up being Chewbacca, which was interesting. They actually showed Han's character speaking the Wookiee language. Throughout any of the Star Wars films, he never tried to do the Wookiee sounds to communicate with Chewbacca. He would always communicate in English, and Chewbacca would, do his thing. But this time, they went ahead and showed a brief moment of Han being able to speak his language, and then that's how they connected. Han devised a plan to get them out of the little chamber that they was in, where Han was going to be devoured by Chewbacca, but ended up impressing Chewbacca with being able to speak Wookiee, and then devise a plan to get out of the little chamber that they were in. So it was quite interesting too, because they showed like once Han got dropped down into the chamber, like I guess a person had been dropped down before, and they were reduced to just their uniform. So I had no idea Chewbacca ate humans, but they made it clear that he does, I guess, when it comes to extreme circumstances. I thought he could just, beat people up, but apparently he will eat you if he is hungry. So they then went on to find the crew that turned them in, Woody Harrelson's crew with Tandy Newton. They then convinced them to take them along with them and do this mission that they were doing, trying to get this material. I think it was coaxium. And then for whatever reason, the plan didn't quite go together as planned, and Han was flying the ship that was controlling the part of the train that was holding the material that they needed to turn into whatever gangster that Woody Harrelson's character was working with. Han made an executive decision to drop the resource after Woody Harrelson's love interest, Tandy Newton's character, kind of sacrificed herself so they could go through with the mission. But because they were being like followed, because they were messing with stuff that didn't belong to them, Han made the decision to let go of the stuff and then just carry on. Then Woody Harrelson's character explained to him that this was important, it just wasn't for us. I had to actually give this to someone, so now we're really screwed. They then went to that person who was like it's just it's funny because I don't know, it had a similar feel to when every time Han Solo was in trouble with Jabba the Hutt, I guess within the original series, and then even in Force Awakens where these random people he owed money to. So the story had a familiarity of Woody Harrelson's character always seeming to be in debt with the people that he worked for, smuggled for, and you could see how Han, I guess, picked up that characteristic by this dude teaching them everything he knows. So they go and confront the dude that they owed that material to. He gave them another chance, but to get even more, I suppose. So then that is when we were reintroduced to Emilia Clarke, which is who Han cared deeply for on his home planet, Corellia, before they got separated. And then, they did some years apart, came back together in this instance, and the guy had a thing for Emilia Clarke, which who wouldn't? And so he sent her along with them to make sure that they completed the mission. They needed a ship, a fast ship, and she knew how to get that. That was by meeting Lando Calrissian. Calrissian had the Millennium Falcon. So it was nice how they were, paying homage to the original series, kind of tying everything together and giving you a representation of all the things we wonder about when, Han would briefly mention, he wanted fair and square on Return of the Jedi when he said that the ship was, or maybe that was Empire Strikes Back when he said that the ship was his. So it was kind of interesting to see how they put that all together. And so they convinced Lando basically to come with them to help them because they need the ship. Once they go and do that, they go attempt the mission. They actually get what they're looking for, get out of there, go on some flight type of scourge to get around. I guess when you're smuggling, you have to take secret paths in order to get to where you're going so you won't be scoped out by the Empire. They managed to get out of that. Han continuously throughout the movie showed that, he was a valiant pilot or whatever. And so he, time and time again, showed his pilot skills and, why he would eventually become a legend throughout the galaxy. They end up getting back to the gangster that Woody Harrelson's character had originally owed stuff to, getting them the product, but they ran into some type of person that had been following the whole time to make sure that they don't get that resource to turn it into the guy or whatever who Woody Harrelson owed stuff to. At that point, Han showed that he has a conscience, wanting to help the people for their good cause and not wanting to, help the person who was going to do harm, which Woody Harrelson's character owed the resources to. So when they actually got back to that person to deliver those things, it was a ploy, little plot twist. Han and Woody Harrelson's character kind of turned on each other in order to make sure that, they each had different agendas at that point. So they were each trying to execute their own agenda. At that point, Han and Emilia Clarke, who, again, Emilia Clarke, when they got separated, became close to this man who was this gangster. So they had a romantic relationship of some sort. And she ended up turning on that guy because her affinity towards Han proved to be stronger than this thing she had with that gangster. So they end up killing him, send Han on his way. Um, Happy ending, whatever. The movie was just all right, quite honestly. Eh, eh, yeah, I don't know. Rogue One was definitely better. I'll even say Force Awakens was better. Last Jedi, of course, as we know, was trash. This wasn't quite trash. It was just I feel like they could have done Han Solo's character a little bit more justice. Just seemed to be like a random mission. But it did give some context to where Han is from, why he is the way he is. They also threw in there how he got his last name because he didn't really have one, so the Empire just gave him the last name Solo. So that was a coincidence. So it's funny because all the time, I guess, throughout the original trilogy, the Empire had to know who Han Solo was because they must have had a record of him that he used to work for the Empire. But, that didn't necessarily play a factor, I guess, but it's just interesting that they chose to throw that into his character arc or whatever. But overall, I mean, this film was just okay. It doesn't quite feel like a Star Wars film. It feels more like an action film with some sci-fi themes in it. Of course, they have the Empire and all of the Star Wars themes throughout it, but I mean, just like how Rogue One was, where it's kind of an action film, but they threw, Darth Vader in there. They had a lightsaber scene. They brought Grand Moff Tarkin in there. They brought familiar faces. One thing I can say in this Han film, they had a nice little secret little drop at the end with Emilia Clarke's character communicating with the hologram that happened to be Darth Maul. So for the people who, said that he was possibly going to be in the film because, he showed up to the premiere and he hasn't been within one of the Star Wars films since Phantom Menace. So having him in there as a hologram and, Emilia Clarke's character being tied to him now, it made it somewhat intriguing, but it seemed to have almost no relevance with the entire film. Just a little cool thing to throw in there for all the people who keep up with Star Wars outside of just the films. But outside of that, this movie was just like, if I had to give it a rating out of a 10, I'd give it like a 6 or a 7, maybe a 6.5, because it just didn't wow me. Like there was nothing about it that wowed me. They tied together, some things we always wondered about with Han's character, with him meeting Lando Calrissian and getting the Millennium Falcon. Like, how did those things come about? Because of the fact that the original trilogy was so good. But from what I saw from right now, this film is definitely not worthy to see multiple times. I just wanted to check it out because I'm just at this point, it's a roll of the dice when you're dealing with a Star Wars film. When George Lucas was in control of Star Wars, as we know, he put out 3 films between 1977 and 1983. Those were the original trilogy films, and then from 1999 up until 2005, I believe, he put out, or maybe it was 2005, I believe. Yeah, so up until 99, 2005, he put up 3 other films, which was the prequel trilogy. So that was all the, cinema content that really existed prior to Disney taking over Star Wars. And quite honestly, they've put out now Force Awakens, they put out Rogue One, they put out The Last Jedi, and now they put out Han. If I had to rank these 4 films that Disney has put out under or over Star Wars, I would have to put Force Awakens first, Rogue One second. Man, The Last Jedi was so bad. I want to put it last, but this film was so underwhelming. Like it wasn't a huge colossal disappointment like The Last Jedi was, because that is within the Skywalker saga of Star Wars, and they're totally diluting that. They shouldn't even associate those this new trilogy that they've made to go along with the Skywalker saga. They shouldn't even consider that a part of it, because it honestly doesn't feel like it. I mean, the only person in the Skywalker saga throughout that is Kylo Ren, but he's not as interesting of a character as Darth Vader. Like he's annoying. So it's gonna have to be a tie between Han and The Last Jedi. And Han was not as bad of a film as The Last Jedi, but it just was underwhelming for it to be like an original film, with an original story outside of just some of the things that they've talked about within the original trilogy regarding the character. They had an opportunity to really make a great film and kind of show you know why Han Solo was so significant in Luke and Obi-Wan completing their mission in A New Hope and eventually joining the rebellion and also getting with Princess Leia. So they could have really showed how special he was. I feel like they tried to take a stab at it with him coming from nothing and proving that he's cunning, he has guile, he's smart, he's resourceful, he's a warrior pretty much. So they showed that aspect of him and his foundation as a person, or a character I should say. But as far as the film goes, at some parts I was honestly totally bored, because of the fact that it would just get really slow. And the mission of the movie was to get this coaxium, while they also explain little things about Han Solo that give you context for the past films. But outside of that, the overall plot or mission, their mission that they were on, his characters that were around him, story was trash. But other than that, I'm optimistic for a good Star Wars film under Disney. Or let me say great. I feel like they still haven't made a great one yet. Now, by their standards, in terms of revenue, The Force Awakens was huge. Even The Last Jedi was all right. I'm pretty sure for their financial expectations, though, it underwhelmed because the drop-off was significant. I know a lot of people did not see that movie multiple times, which you could account for all Star Wars fans seeing their movies multiple times. And I can attest that I only saw that movie once, and that was the first time I ever did that. I think I will be doing it again this time with Han. It just wasn't that great. Nothing really stood out to it, quite honestly. But yeah, that is my review of Han. Being unimpressed is becoming a thing now with Star Wars. It's sad, but hopefully one day they can get someone over there who truly, understands. I guess what the essence of Star Wars, what it really is about, because it seems like it's just been watered down.